Hello, Abigail here with Tarotscopes for Gemini season, Gemini Sun, Moon, and Rising. Welcome, Geminis and the people with Gemini placements. This is a really transitory season, which is typical for mutable signs. It is the sign that happens at the end of a season. That's what mutable basically represents. Um, Fixed is the middle, cardinal is the first. So it's naturally a transitory moment, but we do have a lot of transits happening this month. We have so much planetary shift into different energies. So I'm going to run down with those and give you any of the basic kind of major astrology. Most of it is a planet moving into a different sign. There obviously is a lot more astrology than what I can fit into this video, but there is a lot. So I'll do that. Then I will give you your tarot reading for this season. So starting off, guys, Saturn is officially moving into Aries. Now, yes, it is going to retrograde back on September 1st and will be there into the new year. But we are coming to the close of Pisces Saturn, people. So if you have your Saturn in Pisces, this is the second to the last curtain of your Saturn return. So congrats. We're almost there. And we're going to be dealing with a whole new energy. Saturn in Pisces is watery and mystical and sometimes obscure, especially when you consider that a good portion of that transit had its ruler Jupiter in Gemini and detriment. So very different vibe than, say, if Jupiter had been in Cancer, which is where it's headed next. But going into Aries, we have a very spicy vibe. It's going to go into Aries under a Leo Aries, so it is a fire-ruled, very intense Saturn ingress. Obviously, that will change the next time it shifts in, but this is a really spicy transit. It's about taking back control and becoming oneself, but not at any cost. I think the downside of Saturn and Aries is it can go scorched earth on literally everything, and maybe you want to maintain some stuff. And it is about setting very concise boundaries. Sometimes those boundaries seem to come out of the blue because if you think about Aries as the beginning of the zodiac, it's that initiation. But it is a moment of excitement and energy. A reminder that it will be going in adjacent to Neptune. So we're not really going to get the full um, impact to a certain degree and the full understanding of what this is going to mean for us because of Neptune kind of, you know, blurring up and clouding what's going on. But yeah, it's very exciting. It's one of the biggest transits. It happens on May 25th. It is right at the edge of the day. So if you're in a different time zone than EST where I am, it might happen on the 25th. Then we get Mercury going into Gemini on the 25th. So just bing, bing, bing. And then we get the new moon on the 26th, which is actually pretty exciting because the ruler will then, of that new moon, will then be adjacent to the sun for that, which is very Gemini lunation. It's going to be very intense, a lot done. Also, if you remember, everything going into Gemini this season is going into a trine with Pluto. So the light, frivolous Gemini energy that we might be used to is going to be, and I don't use frivolous in a negative way. I think we all need some frivolity, but it's going to be tinted and shaded with that Pluto trine with really serious energy. So just be aware that as those planets move, we will be dealing with Pluto themes. Then we move into Venus entering Taurus on June 6th. We are officially out of the signs where the retrograde happened in the spring. So it is a beautiful time. Venus is in domicile. One of its favorite, actually, its favorite place besides Libra to exist in. So this is a really great transit for a lot of things. I think it's going to make things a little more smooth, make things a little less angular and spiky, which we do need pointy things for certain situations, but we don't need them all the time. So this is a really nice shift. Then we get Mercury headed into Cancer because when Mercury doesn't have a retrograde, it literally zips through signs. So we get a nice little watery vibe. Does Mercury thrive technically in water signs? Maybe not, but this is a great time for poetry, telling people that you care about them, really expressing those deep, tender thoughts that may be a little harder to express sometimes. And then on June 9th, we have Jupiter entering Cancer. This is one of the favorite transits of the year for most astrologers. Jupiter is considered exalted in Cancer. It is just such a different vibe from Jupiter and Gemini. And I think we're all really thrilled and interested and really ready for this softer energy. It'll especially be helpful for Sagittarians. It'll be helpful for Pisces humans. Um, and then anyone who has a Jupiter, you will get that kind of extra juice on your own Jupiter with this transit, even if it's not directly interacting. That's kind of how it works. It gives a little bit of a boost. And then also check where these things are happening in your house. Um, Venus is entering my ninth house, Jupiter's entering my 11th, and these all have different meanings. So either get a reading or look it up. It's really important. And then we get a full moon in Sagittarius, which is also special, partially because it squares the nodes, which is going to make it a little eclipsy. And also because now it is ruled by this Jupiter. So I think it's going to be a really kind of like really intense, but also it's going to have this little edge of sweetness, which I think we can all appreciate. And last but not least, we have Mars entering into Virgo on the 17th of June. So we have all of these major planetary transits happening. Saturn is, of course, the biggest one, but there's a lot of reasons why each one of these is very important and impactful in its own way. So pay attention to those, and we will move on to, our moment here with your cards, which I really love because this archetype card really exemplifies the vibe of not just Gemini, but this Gemini season. And you have the shapeshifter, which I absolutely love for you because I think that Geminis are very good at shifting into different personas and into different parts of self really well. And then on top of that, this entire season is a shapeshift in a way. This entire season is the planets moving through different signs and shifting into different forms, into different outfits based on the zodiac sign they're in. So, I think this is a really important season for you to play with your ability to be a different person. And I don't mean different from who you are, but play with perception, play with how you are perceived and how you want to be perceived. Enjoy the parts of yourself that you can switch up for other people. I think the kind of counterpoint to that is that sometimes we can, lose parts of ourselves in trying to please others. But I think not doing shape shifting to make ourselves palatable for others, but doing shape shifting because it's a talent and skill you have and you can use really well. It shouldn't be done out of fear or out of a shame that is rooted in like who you are. It should be done because you're good at it, because you can shift and change in different situations to benefit yourself. So don't be shy with that. Enjoy this kind of extreme transitory season and play with what you want to do and be and experience in these different transits as we kind of move across the zodiac. And moving into the tarot cards. Start off with Justice, which I think is interesting. Justice card is associated with Libra, and we don't have a lot of Libra activity. We do have, Pluto and then the Sun and Mercury in Gemini right now. Uranus will be following suit in, I believe, Cancer season. So a lot is happening there. And while Libra itself is not getting teamed off, this is like a very air card. And it's about, in a way, shapeshifting, kind of. It's about going between two extremes and finding a balance and trying to discover what is true and what is not. And also, I know it doesn't seem like that, but also an acceptance of the gray area, because the gray area is the middle way. It's the way where things are not quite as clear as we thought. And now I do believe that there are some absolute truths, like people deserve housing and food and water and stuff. None of that should be monetized. There's no reason for it. We all deserve those things. And it shouldn't matter our condition in life, whether we get access to those or not, our age, our race, etc. But I do think you're going to have a lot of kind of moments in this season where you are asked about your values and beliefs. It feels very Venus, especially since we came out of that retrogrades. And Venus retrogrades, well, they are a lot about relationships and they are a lot about interpersonal stuff. To me, they are very much more about values, especially in Taurus. So this is about you taking those lessons and those values and those new beliefs or those kind of redefined boundaries that Venus retrograde gave you and really setting them into place, which is going to I don't want to say put people at odds with you, but it is definitely going to challenge you. And part of the reason we do see so many people kind of come in and out of our lives in Venus retrogrades is because with value shifts come our shifts around other people, and who we hang out with and the people that we resonate with shift in a Venus retrograde. So it's exciting, but it is going to require you to really kind of dig in deep and get really clear with what you want and what you believe in and what you're willing to engage in with these new ideals and beliefs. I love this because it's very literal. We have the Chariot, which is our very special Cancer card, which is very much this Jupiter ingress. We're on a new journey with Jupiter. It's very exciting. Jupiter is finally out of the sign of Gemini. I do think it did obviously a lot of beneficial things, but in detriment, some of them seemed a little counterintuitive. Just putting it out there, Jupiter. Seemed a little counterintuitive. And it always seemed, at least to me, to feel as though like the benefic good stuff always had just a little edge to it. Always had just a little bit of like, this could be a joke, it could not be real, we could be playing with you a little bit, which is very much the kind of trickster vibes that Gemini can infuse into Jupiter. But now we're moving into this Cancerian Jupiter that is more sincere and more intense when it comes to like the focus on care and finding holistic solutions. Jupiter Gemini was about building skills and talent and really recognizing parts of ourselves that we can activate for ourselves. And, Jupiter and Cancer, I believe, is going to bring us more care, more sustainability, um, hopefully a little bit more stability when it comes to what goodness is and what it means for us as a collective, as individuals. But going with the Chariot, this is, a journey into uncharted territory. We haven't been in Cancer for 12 years. So what was happening 12 years ago? Where were you last time Jupiter was in Cancer, and what did that mean for you then? Um, but yeah, it's really beautiful if you're having a Jupiter return. Happy Jupiter return. Um, but enjoy this transit. It's a really beautiful one that a lot of astrologers, including myself, are very happy about. Obviously, I have kind of a unique chart, so I am waiting to see what where I get bitten in the ass. It's also Jupiter square for me. So what does this portend for me? I don't know. And also know that like just because a transit is benefic doesn't mean that it doesn't have to face difficult truths. Doesn't mean that it doesn't come into conflict with other parts of our chart. It just means that there is a softer energy to this, that there is a level of generosity in this Jupiter that we might not see in other signs. Then we have our Father of Cups, which I think ties in nicely with this. Also, Mercury will be going into Cancer. Like I said earlier, it is about really expressing yourself in a warm, caring way. Also, don't forget that Mercury is also, deals with commerce and merchants and things like that. So, Mercury in Cancer is about really connecting with people who you trade with, people who you benefit from, so opening up those networking things, finding people who have similar values to work with. And with this King of Cups, really coming to the table as someone who has power and the ability to make your own choices and who gets to say, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, etc. You should never be afraid to do that. But with a nice King of Cups, it gives us this ability to kind of stand firm, especially when maybe the world around us is kind of shifting and changing all the time. The traditional representation of this card, which is kind of actually similar to this, is a man on like a block of something in the ocean. And it's like the calm in the center of the storm. If you've ever seen a bird on water, even in storms, they are this kind of point of calm, this point of stability, even if the waves around them are kind of shifting and pulling them in different spaces. So, it is a time to really pull on that emotional strength and power and really come forward with the best of yourself and with that kind of inner knowing that creates strength and power and all of those beautiful things that I think, especially unfortunately for water signs, gets misinterpreted as, maybe with the exception of Scorpio, depending on your placements. But a lot of times you guys get pulled on and pulled in different directions because people see your fluidity as an opportunity to manipulate. Not this Gemini season. We don't have time for this, So, and a lot of Gemini people have Cancer placements. So, in that part of your chart, don't let people push and pull you around. You get to pick the vessel that you exist in, you get to pick the channel that you are. Other people don't get to supersede your sense of self as a Gemini. And, while air and water are very different qualities, the ability to kind of be almost so shiftable and so changeable that people take advantage of that. And not this time. We're not gonna put up with that. You can say, no, that's not what I want. And you get to do it at whatever you want. Obviously within the context of your own life, but other people should not be dictating who you are and what you get to be. And then we get this beautiful strength card, which I love, with the representation of the lion, very Mars in Leo, which up until like the last, like, I think 3 days of Gemini season, that's where, Mars is. And we're finally out of those retrograde degrees. So it's time to really dig into Martian themes, to really be big and loud and proud. And um, last year was the year of the strength card, which, like I said so many times, really felt more like the kind of original term that was used for this card, which is fortitude, like the ability to endure. Sometimes we think of strength as action, and last year was like, no, strength is endurance. But this year it does feel like there's something more to get our teeth into. So, get out there, do the things that you've not been able to do because of the chaos of the beginning of the year. Go follow, to be cliche, follow your heart and really reconnect with self this Gemini season, and do that in all of the myriad of planetary shifts, which I think actually is really something that works well with your nature. So you I find that Geminis tend to benefit from shifting landscapes and changes and stuff because that's where you're the most comfortable. And yeah, are there probably parts of the chart that don't appreciate that? Yes, but most Gemini suns I know enjoy a bit of variation. So go out and get that variation. Um, this card, strength, can be interpreted in so many different ways. I encourage you to interpret it in your own way this season rather than going with maybe a societal standard. And last but not least, we have a Three of Cups. This is really beautiful. I love this. It's about reconnecting with people. I found that with all the retrogrades and stuff, a lot of people I think have not been able to reconnect with people, or they've just been too busy, or stuff has just been coming across the plate way too fast. This is the time to reconnect, go take picnics, have brunch, um, invite people over, go outside, go on a little hike, go out and just find your people and spend time with them and marinate in the joy of community and being with people who, you know, regardless of differences, you can always find a nice shifting happy medium. Um, and I think that is the little gift that the season is going to bring. I think there's a lot of gifts coming in. I think there's a lot of change coming in. But I do think that thing that you can kind of seek out that is going to bring you the most joy is reconnecting with people and finding people who really vibe with you, and, not accepting being in a group or being with people who constantly make you feel like a burden or make you feel like too much. These are the people who love being with you for who you are. And my dears, that is my reading for this upcoming Gemini season for my Gemini folks. I'm really excited for what's to come. Buckle up because there are a lot of shifts and changes, but I think that this is going to feel really good for you to kind of stretch your legs and really, dig into your strengths, which are the abilities to shift and change and move and really lock into the variances in the energy. Not everyone can do that. All right, my loves, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I always love comments and connecting with you all. Happy Gemini season, and I'll see you in a different space and time.